Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have Isabel Hundt, who is a transformational coach, speaker, a global presence ambassador, and author of the book, The Power of Faith-Driven Success, focusing on helping individuals create success through understanding the strength within them. So let's give a warm welcome to Isabel. So Isabel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, definitely. So how did you enter the world of transformation? And you kind of think back, there's not like a career day in school, you're looking like, okay, the people are going doctor, lawyer, transformation coach. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I almost want to say I didn't know what else to do. No, I'm just kidding. but you kind of see that today a lot, where people are like, I'm not sure what to do. Well, I coach people through what I've gone through. But no, on a more serious note, I always was interested in psychology and sociology. My dad studied social work, and to go a little bit back, I grew up in East Germany. And so there was still the wall up when I grew up there. And when I was around 10 or 11, my dad was able to finally get his degree in social work. He was not allowed to go to university due to the government. And so I was at an age where I understood quite well what psychology means and what sociology means and all of the studying. So I pretty much read his books, which was quite interesting at the age of 12. And then a couple years later, I got my degree in social science, which means psychology, sociology. And so my background always was in that field. And I also wanted to get my master's degree in counseling here in the United States once I moved here. And that didn't quite work out. And I was always questioning, okay, God, I don't know, what do you want me to do? If I want to have a job here, in the field of psychology counseling, I need my master's degree. I don't have $60,000. And then I met a friend who went through a coaching training, which is called accomplishment coaching, which is an ontological coaching training. So it's more about the deep spiritual search within, and it's really deep work and amazing work. And my husband went with me for that weekend just to see what it is really and if I would be interested in that. And he's like, if you don't do that, then I don't know what you're supposed to do. This is exactly what you need to do. And so I went through this coaching training. It was a whole year, and it was a total up and down and just, sometimes I hated them so much and then I loved them the same way. It was a total breakdown and build up. But throughout this whole process, I also realized that I was an empath, and that I'm highly sensitive. For those who don't know what an empath is someone whose mirror neurons are way more developed than what we would consider normal. And so we experience life literally, what other people experience, we experience that as it is our own. And so sometimes it's hard to distinguish what is really ours and what is others. And it's really hard for people to lie to us. So just as a warning, if anyone is trying to trick me, it barely ever works. You have to be really good at it. But that understanding of who I am, and that there's so many, especially younger people out there that experience that exact same scenario, especially those who suffer from depressive phases or panic attacks and anxiety, that is part of often of being an empath. And that is where it got into the transformational coaching realm and what I do today. So that was the long explanation, sorry.
Well, it's a great explanation on it all because it dives into so many areas. You think about panic attacks and anxiety, how many people they suffer through that without knowing why. And the only solution that they're ever presented is, here, take these pills, you'll be fine.
Yes. Oh, yes. I hate it. Just last week, I had to go to the hospital for an emergency, and they literally just came on with 3 of those needles, and one was saline, other one was something for nausea, and the other one was morphine. I'm like, what are you doing? What is that? Oh, well, we're just going to give you something for the pain. I'm like, no, stop it. I haven't taken anything in years. Don't. But yeah, that's what they do usually. Like, oh, this is the symptoms, this is how we treat the symptoms, and that's about it. But if we go really deep, we understand so much more of who we are and the calling and the purpose that we have. It's just incredible for me because, I mean, in my early 20s, I suffered badly from depression. I got kicked out of university because of the consequences that came with that, or the results that came with those depressions. And now looking back, I understand I wasn't sick. There was nothing wrong with me. I was just absolutely overstimulated and I didn't trust my intuition. And my intuition, and how we call it gut feeling, was literally screaming at me. And I ignored it because I thought, this is the goals that I have, this is the dream that I need to accomplish, and this is what I'm working towards, and everything else doesn't matter. So I didn't listen to what was really going on, that healing intuition inside. And yeah, and then you just get medications most of the time, and it affects our lives on every end and in every area.
Oh, definitely. You look at the solutions that people have. It doesn't matter what it is, anxiety, toothaches, you name it. Oh, here, take this pill, take this pill. But no one's ever addressing the root cause of the problems.
Yes, and that's
And that's
what
something
my
that's being
work
resolved.
does.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
excellent that you really dive in there. So now, when you entered the world of transformational coaching, what was it that drew you to it the most? Because it's something that's different, being able to understand people's emotions and then how to help clear up blockage and so forth, so you can help people get to the success they want in life.
Yeah. Um, Well, I had those two fields, right? The counseling and the coaching. And I took a deeper look. I'm like, okay, what is it that I really want? What would really, really excite me more? And when we take a look at coaching, coaching is considered as moving forward. There's a more positive spin around it. And I just thought, this is just more the empowering work that I want to do. I don't want to talk about problems all day long. I really want to see the heart of people. I really want to understand their soul, and then bring their body, their physical body, in alignment with their spiritual body, so they can get to where they want to go even faster. Because really, our subconscious mind, our soul already knows exactly what we're supposed to do, what the next step is, and the directions, the decisions that we need to make. And we just have forgotten how to tune in and how to distinguish that voice in your head. And I think we would be able to solve so many problems in this world if everyone would do the work. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
we would be able to literally, how everyone says with those beauty passions, like, I'm for world peace. Well, we actually would be able to accomplish that if everyone would have an understanding of what's necessary to be a part of this world, of this society, but also contribute to it.
Oh, definitely. It's something that's different. But you hit on something which I think is really important. That distinction about coaching, it's moving forward, as opposed to you look at the traditional route where people are going to therapy, which is
Mhm.
still important for a lot of people. But you look at how many out there that can be in therapy for years and never move forward. They're just stuck in this endless cycle of dealing with their issues instead of,
Mhm.
well, how do you solve the thing in the first place and move forward?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I studied Carla McLaren a lot. She is all into emotions and the language of emotions, and she also teaches about trauma a lot. And usually, when people end up in therapy, the background somewhere is a traumatic experience that they had to go through. And often, when we go through therapy, we deal with the problem, we talk through it, and then there are often support groups. But within those support groups, we start to feel comfortable with the pain instead of moving through the pain freely. That's what we need to do to overcome trauma. They're sitting within the pain, and it feels good because they have the confirmation from the people around them and the therapist. Like, you start to feel good in the pain. And once that scenario, the environment changes, you start to feel it again. And that is a little bit the danger of therapy if we're just staying in that problem. But with coaching, and I hope most coaches are really trained in that, because I personally believe coaching is as much a profession as anything else, especially when it comes into personal life coaching, that you can transfer that and you can say, hey, you can kind of reflect better on the person and move them out. And I think in a lot of cases, I have clients that work with both therapist and coach, and there is really a great synergy for both and an importance for both. So that is why I just felt like coaching was more for me than the counseling. So I was actually glad that I didn't have the $60,000 to get my master's in counseling.
Well, think of it this way: you had an amazing discount. Like instead of doing this, you're still accomplishing this same thing that you wanted to, but you didn't have to spend $60,000 to find that out.
No, that I ended up with after becoming an entrepreneur and tried to buy into every program that was out there to figure out how can you become successful instead of again listening to my intuition and not buy into everything that's out there. So and somehow I still got to those 60,000.
It was just differently. Instead of it being an all one institution, it was a little here, a little there, a little bit more
Yeah.
over there. So then, based on that, because I think it's important that you had that epiphany of you were just searching for that success. What was it that you started figuring out after you took course after course after course?
It took me a smack in the face. At some point, my husband looked at me and said, I'm really here to support your dream, but when will you actually make some profit? When do you think you can actually own what you do and who you are, and not just try to buy into other things and you need to do it the same way? So he pretty much kind of slapped me in the face a little bit in a good way, obviously not physically, but
Yeah.
in case someone misunderstood that. No,
Right.
but then I also had started with working with my coach, and no, actually two coaches, and the one coach is more of a spiritual coach, and she always tells me, Isabel, you're a renegade. You don't do things like everyone else. You need to stop. And she really taught me to how to listen to my inner voices, how to do things that are really in alignment that feels good for me. And when it feels good, you're more successful because you want to do it more. And that's when I literally unsubscribed from all the emails and programs and didn't subscribe to anything else and didn't buy into anything else and just learned the foundation for me to create the foundation of how am I spiritually connected? What are the stories that are in my way to really create that success, or not just success in a way, but that fulfillment? Often we experience success as success equals money or the status that you have, but it's more about the fulfillment that comes with it. And and so I just really cut everything and I did the foundational work for myself, and then I build on top of that. And every time something came up, for example, how to use a funnel or how to use, I'm still not great at that, but that's a different story. But how to integrate certain things on your website, how to make it look, or how to hire the right people. Every time something like that was the next step for me, I took a look, who can support me and help me through this? And then I really looked, is it in alignment with how I think and who I am? And my values, is it not? And if it was not, I said no to the person I'm working with. If it totally was, I worked with them. And I trusted that even if that may have been the person that cost me more, that I still have the money available. And every time I did that, it was just there. The money was just there. I was provided for. And that's really how I started to build on top of that really strong, firm foundation, and how I see more and more how I can move forward, the more success, the more I carry that message out that I have. And yeah, that's pretty much
And that's pretty much the end of that story.
it.
Like, but you hit on something I think is really important because there's so many people they fall into this trap of the learning stage where it's
Mm-hmm.
this endless cycle. Like, well, I don't know enough. I don't know if instead of doing what you did, which was you learn what you needed for that foundation, and then you started seeking out specific answers when you came across the need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really what we have to do. Like when I look at things in the marketing world, of I have this amazing foundation, but then it's like I see something that's really specialized, like, oh, that's an innovative way of doing it. I don't know how to do that yet. Let me learn it. So it's very targeted towards something instead of the same courses over and over. Because as an example, with like Facebook advertising, there's only so many ways to teach it. At the end of the day, it's the same platform, just people put their own little spins on it. That's
Exactly. And you have to find your own little spin, because when people say, I'll show you how I did it and you will be as successful, I always call BS on that. Because
right.
for one, you understand things differently. You're emotionally differently invested in that. So the result will be different. I hate any of those marketing strategies that tell you, I'm teaching you how I did it and you will be successful and make six figures in 6 months. No, if that is not your path for your life, you will not get there. Even if you want to, there's still something in the way. It doesn't mean that you will never get there, but there might still be something else for you to learn. So all those promises are never real because you are not that person. And that's why it's so important to distinguish what you're learning, and then taking it, how can I implement that so that it is in alignment with who I am, and put your little own spin on it. I think
And
that is the most important if you sign up for stuff.
it is because when I see these courses that constantly talk about those things, so if you do exactly what I did, well, yes, it's obviously BS, but what has to happen more, it's teaching people frameworks.
Yeah.
This is how you use these platforms. These are examples of things and why they worked.
Yep.
And then you can use that as a basis, like, oh, now I understand that if that certain types of images
Mm-hmm.
trigger certain responses. So in my business, then if I need to do that, okay, well then I need to use XYZ images as opposed to that one. So now you have examples, but it's not just the cut and paste. I'm going to use the exact type of image, this or that. Well, no, because that's part of their story, what attracted people to them, not
Yeah.
just you're copying. You think about what would happen if you decided to put a bunch of people in a room and you started to talk like Oprah. People look at you and wonder, what in the world?
That's right. That's exactly right, because it just doesn't, it's not in alignment with the person. I know people say, okay, I can't hear the word alignment anymore nowadays, but it's really is true. I can't think of another word. I could say it in German. Honestly, I wouldn't even know the German word for it. I would have to look it up. Oh, okay. But it really is, you are not that person, so you can't just give your voice. It's like Ariel, where the what is her? I
The
don't
Little
know.
Mermaid?
Well, yeah, but the mother, no, not the mother, the stepmother, or whoever, the
Oh yeah,
mean
the mean lady. Yeah,
the
there's
mean
called
lady,
that. The
where
mean
she
lady.
steals her voice to
Right.
be like her, and then to impress this prince. But the prince wasn't quite impressed because something felt off, right?
Right.
And he knew it's not her. So that's exactly that's. I've never thought of that example, but it's actually a great example. If you take someone else's voice and you make it and you pretend it's your own, it will still not resonate with people, because it is you're sending out a different energy from what you're sending out and what is your core energy. That's really coming from within. It just is out of whack, and people won't respond to that. Subconsciously, people know. When you have those conversations, you go somewhere and you have coffee with someone and you go home like, a really, really nice person, but something just fell off and I don't know what it is. Like, subconsciously, we can pick up on that energy that is off, even if we
Right.
consciously don't know how to explain it.
Oh yes, it's the intuition that we have to trust. Like,
Yeah.
why doesn't this feel right? And you think about in life, how many times you're like, oh, that's nothing. You're like, oh, son of a, and you're mad at yourself because you didn't listen.
Yeah, oh, yes. I mean, that is literally how I had to move from New York to San Francisco and then ended up in Indianapolis because I didn't listen. I always was so fixed on, oh, let's make it happen and hopefully this is going to work out now, that I just did whatever I thought I needed to do instead of listening and trusting, even if in that moment that would have meant, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm literally homeless at this point, which it did happen. But um, I didn't, it only got to that point because I didn't listen in the first place.
And you think about how many times that happens with people. They ignore it, and then they're falling down the rabbit hole because they didn't listen to themselves. That total face palm thing. Like, why? And instead of just trusting, because you think about the the society we live in, often people are taught, oh, don't trust that, just go with logic, and not thinking, well, that instinct is there for a reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That, it's you're picking up on the world around you. Think about, back in the days when society wasn't as advanced. People lived more in like an agrarian society, and there's more of the wilderness out there. You had to rely on your instincts. If something said, this doesn't feel right, you kind of left the area, because if you didn't, usually something really bad was about to happen.
Yeah, and honestly, it's still the case. We still know that. We get into bad relationships. We don't listen. Maybe you end up in an abusive relationship because you didn't trust. The guy looked better than what your feeling actually was, your deep feeling. This is how we end up in careers that we really didn't want to do. That is how we end up in conversations that are so discouraging and just is so mean-spirited because we didn't listen, right? I mean, all of us. And yeah, everything that we literally get into, and often it even is illnesses. Certain illnesses are developed because of things that we don't listen to. Maybe it's the food that we know we probably shouldn't eat that, and we still do. Or if it's health in general, or the place that we live in. Often we feel like we're stuck in one place when our heart tells you you need to move somewhere else where you can really breathe.
Right.
Things like that. There are just so many things that are being told to us, like that we really know and can hear if we just listen. But often that is what I experience with my clients. Often we can't hear it because there are all those stories and emotions that are connected to those stories that are trapped inside of us. And it's literally like layers of energy that is stored up in our body. And the thicker that energy, that layer energy is, the harder it is to really listen, because there's so much noise, because every frequency also has a noise level. Every wave, every energy wave can be translated into a color, into a tone. And so every emotion also has a certain frequency. Every organ in your body has a certain frequency. And that's how they match up. And that is still all noise, even if you can't physically hear it. But it's still movement that your subconscious mind and your energy field experiences. So there's a lot of deep work to do, especially nowadays where there's so much overstimulation of everything.
Oh, definitely. So, and you bring up something which is important, the overstimulation. And in your world, what do you really define as overstimulation? Because some people, it might just be like, oh, the TV's up too loud, or in others, like there's way too many people.
Probably all of that. But also overstimulation means the toxins that you're taking in, if it's through food, through the environment. And we're, as human beings, we're profoundly connected to Mother Earth. Most people don't know. That's why grounding is becoming more popular. Because if we go outside barefoot, it's literally decharging our energy field when we go outside. The Earth has a negative vibration or polarity. And when something happens and we're overstimulated, we also have a negative polarity. So negative plus negative equals positive. And so the Earth helps us to feel more balanced. Balance means positive polarity. And people don't understand that. Just the overstimulation from not going outside. Too many children are way too much inside. So they're already at that age overstimulated just from what they're taking in. It never decharge. It's the food that we eat, toxins, it's the thoughts, and especially for empaths, people who are highly sensitive, it's the overstimulation of other people's stuff that we're not aware that we're taking that in. It's loud noises, traffic, if you live close to a busy road, that is overstimulation. What else? I mean, pretty much everything. Or if you store up too many emotions and you never allow yourself to feel anything, you just bottle up, that is overstimulation of your biomagnetic field in your body. And that eventually leads to burnout, literally crashing and not being able to move. With then some people respond with aggression. They just want to let it out, and whatever feels good to release, they continue doing. It could end up in addiction and also in depression. And that's the cycle that we're seeing, especially now with young people that are more sensitive, because the vibration of the earth itself increased, literally like a help scream, like help me. We're at a point where something needs to happen. And so younger people are more receptive because they're more in tune in general. They don't have all those layers on yet. And so they're already getting overstimulated because they don't know how to deal with any of that. And that, in the end, determines our success in life.
And that's so interesting that you say it, because I think of the overstimulation of that we deal with, of the just the typical day to day of what we're going through in terms of the conversations, the people, the emails, and all these things add up. But if you don't have the coping strategies and you spend time grounding yourself every single day, it's easy to see how someone could burn themselves out. Where you think about the stress that people have, that they lead to problems with their drinking and doing all sorts of things because they're constantly going, they're burning themselves out. It's like, I like to jokingly say, they're not only burning the candle at both ends, they're burning it in the middle as well.
But yeah, on all ends, like everywhere. They're burning themselves.
Right.
Let's say it that way. They don't just burn a candle, they burn themselves. Overweight, for example, can be part of overstimulation as well. That overweight, for example, often is considered there's an emotional connection to that weight. It's just little things that we see. Illnesses, certain illnesses, it is because of we're so addicted to being seen. But in a fast-paced society, we don't stop until something bad happens. And this is how we learn already at a very young age. If I don't feel well, people pay attention to me. So we're subconsciously talking ourselves into certain illnesses or situations that consciously we don't really want to experience, but subconsciously, if we're honest, we kind of do because we get the attention. And there is really a danger in today's society that we're feeling ourselves into disaster and permanent damage.
And how is that, like, in terms of feeling ourselves into a disaster?
Mm-hmm. We only remember what we can emotionally connect to. We only see what we can emotionally connect to. This is why, for example, some people see a wall and they say, oh, it looks yellow. And another person says, oh, that's more beige, like a brown tone. And they see it differently, not just because their brain might transform that information differently, but also because they have a different emotional connection to yellow and emotional connection to brown, for example. And so they experience that differently. So even if someone goes through a similar situation as you, their emotional experience is still different. So the situation still feels different. And we can only work with what we feel. In coaching, I always talk about we can only get somewhere physically if we can get there emotionally first. Otherwise, you keep sabotaging yourself and you always go the vicious cycle over and over. So that's why we're saying you feel yourself into your situation. That's why emotions are so important. But so many scientists and psychologists now agree that we as a world society are emotionally underdeveloped. Most of us don't even know what emotions really are. We just define that in happiness and anger and sadness. That's pretty much what most people know, but they don't anymore. So that's the easiest for them to do, but it doesn't help at all because we're ignoring and avoiding so much else that's part of our life. And that's what I mean with feeling ourselves into situations. And often it happens subconsciously, so we're not consciously aware unless we train and practice for ourselves to listen and to slow down.
And I think that's important for people to spend that time to develop their emotional awareness, because you think about how many people they're taught to suppress emotions. You think of like it's like boys in general when they're growing up,
Yeah,
that it was normal, like boys don't cry, suck it up. And
yeah.
you just instilled that. So it didn't matter like how bad you're feeling, you just had that stoic face, like, nope, nothing's wrong. And so you're going, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But externally, you're not letting it out.
Well, that's how they're being taught certain emotions, what they feel, with the wrong meaning of what they feel, and it
Right.
just doesn't add up. Inside, there's so much confusion about that. Even when people or when children cry, and you go and say, "Hey, what's wrong, sweetie?" There's nothing wrong to feel upset or to feel sad. Just ask what they need. It's that simple. Instead of saying, "Hey, what's wrong?" Ask them what they need, so they can eventually acknowledge all the emotions that come and don't have to react upon what they feel, but they can just acknowledge it and work through it. And that way, they will be more successful in life because they start to be able to do that way faster and are less stuck within their emotional world.
Exactly. It makes the most sense in that manner. You want to do things that it's carrying somebody forward, because you think about the two differences. If you say, oh, what's wrong?
Mhm.
Then someone's focusing in on the problem instead of what do you need. You're focusing in on the solution.
Yes. And our needs are equal to our intuition. So
Interesting.
that's something to consider. Our needs is when we acknowledge our needs, it's when we're listening the most to our intuition, and often our wants cover up our needs. It's sometimes easier to acknowledge the wants instead of the needs. So our needs equal our intuition.
Now, why is that?
If you take a look, our needs is something where your body is communicating with you. It's either your soul, you have an emotional or physical or mental need, or even a spiritual need. That is when your body, like everything, your spiritual and your physical body, is letting you know there is something that we need to fully function. So your needs is when you listen to your intuition, so therefore your needs equal your intuition. But often we are so busy in acknowledging what we want, and it's so hard to acknowledge what we need because that may be out of the ordinary. It may be something that doesn't logically fit into your schedule right now. Or it's hard to ask people for encouragement or acknowledgement because you would be considered as weak or not as strong as you're trying to sell yourself to other people. So acknowledging our needs is so much harder that we rather turn to our wants, but then again, we don't listen really to our intuition, to our soul. And that's why I say our needs equals our intuition, and often we just are so focused on what we want, even if it's what we want to accomplish, that our intuition ends up on the back burner.
Right, exactly. It's always about trusting your intuition. So how does this all relate to success in business and in life? Because we've talked about the emotional aspect, we've talked about the in terms of grounding and so forth. But
Mhm.
when it comes down to it, people are like, well, this is great, but how does it help me?
After the last 30 minutes, people should know. No, it really is like the absolute foundation. I mean, how often are we sabotaging ourselves? Like we get triggered. A good example. When I first came to the US, strong men were a trigger for me. I always felt like they're making me look small. They don't really take me seriously. They don't respect me. And it was all because of a story of a past event. So that emotional connection to that past kept me from really moving forward in understanding, okay, I do need this person. And even though it's a man, I am capable of communicating with them on a level that helps them to understand who I am. And knowing all of those things, or like even releasing trapped emotions, that's one of my specialty. where we take a look at the energy around emotions and release that through specific exercises. Um, it ends up in a vicious cycle over and over. We know that people say, my gosh, I'm back here again. I feel like I'm just dreading and just riding my bike on the same spot and I can't get anywhere. That is because everything you go through in life, there's either something that needs to be healed or released before you are able to move forward. So everything you do in life depends on your emotional state. If you're emotionally not where you want to go, you will never get there physically because you continue to sabotage your own story. And that's how success, I mean, it's all connected, right? We can see it. If you keep sabotaging yourself, there's not the success that you wish for. But it's the same with the identification. What is success? What does it mean to you? If we chase after something, it barely ever happens to get to that point where we really want fulfillment and satisfaction, because that is really what people want, that fulfilling and the satisfaction that comes with success.
Right. I think you hit on something really important there, and that's defining what success is, because so many people, they let others define what it looks like. Like some people might say, oh, success is having, of the let's say the Ferrari in the garage, the 5-bedroom house, and all these other things. But then you look at how many people in that situation are absolutely miserable when someone else they're like, oh, success is being able to pack up and go whenever they want. Like, this weather stinks today, I'm going to Miami. Or, oh, hurricane coming, I'm out of here, I'm going to the mountains, or whatever. Because they defined it for themselves.
Yeah. And we just have to be honest with ourselves and live our life and not compare it to other people. Your journey, even if you do the same work, for example, your journey is still a different one than the other person. You cannot live someone else's journey. You have to experience certain things to really understand who you are. I mean, I see it with children. For example, when my son was even younger, when he was sick, he always clung to me. It was horrible. I couldn't even let go. And there were times where I started to feel sick because he was sick. And my husband looked at me. He's like, do you understand what's happening? You are so feeling with him that you're taking away the pain from him. But he needs to experience that to grow through this. This is his experience on his path. You cannot take this away from him, even if you want to as a mother. But you cannot. It's part of who he is and what he has to go through to get to where he needs to go, even at a very young age. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm coaching it and you're telling me this. And by the way, he's a naturopath, so we're in the same field. We have a similar mindset. But I was like, you're right. And from that day on, I made sure that I do not take on his pain. Even if I wanted to, I just help him work through it. And we do that with so many people around us. Instead of letting them go through the experience, we try to help them out. I take it away from you. I'm not going to take the pain away from you because I know there's something deeper and more behind what you're going through. Even if I wanted to, but I will not do it. And that's what a lot of times when you see businesses, they have all those promises and they hit on your pain points. And I can help you get out of there. I will tell you, when you work with me, you will go through it, but I will hold your hand. And because there is a reason why you have to experience that, because it's all part of your path. If I would take it away from you, I might take an experience away from you that would get you where you need to go faster.
So it sounds like it's better for someone to have a guide to show them how to navigate through it.
Absolutely.
So it's better than saying, you're going to avoid all this pain. Well, no. Now, granted, there's certain things, like if it involves, you're going to learn the hard way what it means, you jump out of a plane and your parachute doesn't work right.
Yeah.
I will skip that lesson in life. Thank you very much.
Yes, I would skip that too. Obviously, we still have we were given the intellect, so we can also make smart choices without.
Right.
Right. I mean, there are certain things, but when it comes to our emotional world, it is always better to have someone who goes through that with you. I have someone. I continuously work with someone through that. I also believe that most coaches should work with their own coaches, and not just business coach, but people who help them, like, oh, I'm stuck here. Oh yeah, the story that your client just brought up, that you took that on as your own, or that may have triggered something in you. So you plateau with your client. So for me, it's important to work through that on my own with my coach as well, because if I wouldn't, I don't think I would be as successful in working through all of the stuff that comes up for clients to move forward as successful as I do today.
Right. Oh, it makes all the difference in the world when you look at things. So then, as we get in wrapping everything up, what's one thing that you recommend that people do so they can create more success in their life, especially when it involves their emotions?
Well, the first thing is, and that's the hard way, how I had to learn it, and I know most of my clients too. So you can see the repeat of that. Stop. Literally stop everything you wanted to do, throw away your to-do list. If you want to get somewhere, take care of the foundation first and invest in that time, because after that, you will see everything is less a drag. You really do what is fun and what gives you joy. And when we're more joyful, we attract more of the people that we want to work with. So you're more successful down the road and way faster if you actually take the time to stop and not roll with everything and everyone else that's trying to teach you how to make 6 figures in 6 weeks or 6 months. You have to understand the journey and your path for yourself before you can actually put things and help on your journey.
Right, exactly. It's all about stopping and enjoying life, because you never want to be in that position where you're looking back later and thinking, I wish I would have done blank.
Yeah, and sometimes it is painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Sometimes just sitting and being with what shows up is painful, because often when we say, oh, I'm busy, that's just a distraction for things that we don't want to deal with. But it is important to work through some things, because it helps you to understand more of where you're supposed to go. So it's not always just enjoying life and being happy, but to really living and not just existing. And living comes with both the light and the darkness.
Right, exactly. And you hit it on the head. You have to live life, not just exist in it.
Yes.
Because you look at how many people, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just going through life, I'm living, no, you're just going through the motions every single day. There's no excitement, there's no joy, there's no pleasure. Yeah. You're just waking up, like going through life like a zombie, going to the couch at the end of the day, watching some TV, and then going to bed and repeating.
Yes, most people do. That's right.
Right. So how can people learn more from you and learn how to get a hold of you?
Well, for one, I keep it pretty simple, or I try to. Everything is pretty much on my website. It's isabelhundt.com, ISABELHUNDT.com. So Hunt, DT, not just HUNT, HUNDT.com. There you can find all the links to connect with me on social media. We have a really great Facebook group called World Visionaries United. Most of us are empath, or how I call it, empath warrior. That's kind of my thing, the empath warrior. And they're all everything about services, and I just created some meditations that I'm going to put on my website as well eventually, once I have that figured out how to. But there's so many things on my website. You find the link to my book. Like, if you just remember isabelhunt.com, you will find everything, how to connect with me and how to learn more.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, Isabel, I want to thank you for coming on to the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom about tapping into your emotions, understanding them to increase the success you're having in life.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking about it. As you can tell, I'm a speaker.
Oh, definitely.
But it was so much fun talking with you about it, and I just, I loved it. Thank you so much for the honor to have me share my story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.